second, Zach. Oh, Zach. For some reason, the screen isn't coming on.
Plugged in. Oh, there we go.
Oh.
Oh,
You've just got magic hands. Every time you touch something, it works. Okay, is counsel ready for the jury panel? All right. Okay, please be seated. All right, good morning, members of the jury panel. I'm Regina Chu, and I'll be the presiding judge in this trial. I want to start out by saying thank you. Thank you for your service. Thank you for interrupting your normal routine. Thank you for fulfilling such an important civic obligation. These are, of course, not normal times. These are extremely trying times. So it's with extra heartfelt appreciation from the entire judicial system that we say thank you for responding to your jury summonses. Upholding the rights that we cherish, the right to a trial by jury and the right to a speedy trial, are constitutional rights that are the very foundation of our democracy. You validate these constitutional rights by appearing today and by proving your willingness to serve. You jurors are our heroes. You are ordinary people who are called to do extraordinary work to make sure that our justice system keeps moving, even in the midst of a pandemic. Not all of us can serve in the military. And Potter caused the death of Daunte Wright while committing the misdemeanor offense of reckless handling or use of a firearm so as to endanger the safety of another with such force or violence that death or great bodily harm to any person was reasonably foreseeable. Count 2 alleges second-degree manslaughter, and that count alleges that on or about April 11, 2021, in Brooklyn Center, Hennepin County, Minnesota, defendant Kimberly Ann Potter caused the death of Daunte Wright by her culpable negligence, whereby Kimberly Potter created an unreasonable risk and consciously took a chance of causing death or great bodily harm to Daunte Wright while using or possessing a firearm. The defendant has pleaded not guilty. That plea denies the charges and places upon the state of Minnesota the burden of proving defendant's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. The state is represented by Attorney General Keith Ellison, Mr. Matt Frank, Ms. Erin Eldridge, and Mr. Josh Larson. The defendant is represented by Mr. Earl Gray and Mr. Paul Ng and Ms. Amanda Montgomery. I want to introduce to you other people that will play critical roles in this case. First of all, I have two clerks that will be assisting with all administrative matters. First of all, my law clerk, Mr. Zach Kramer, and my judicial clerk, Ms. Jessica Bauer. If something should come up of a personal nature and you need to get a message to me, please let my staff know and they'll make sure I find out, okay? Seated in front of me is Carly Davis. She is a certified court reporter, and she's responsible for taking down all the testimony and keeping a formal record of the trial. That means when you respond to questions, you must speak loudly and clearly so our court reporter can make an accurate record. If your answer is yes or no, you have to indicate that orally instead of shaking your head, because that doesn't come out on the record. And please don't say uh-huh or uh-uh, because you can't tell the difference between the two. A couple of things before we get started on jury selection. First of all, masks are required at all times when you're in the courtroom and in the courthouse generally. The only time that you'll be allowed to remove your mask is when you're behind plexiglass in the witness stand, because what's going to happen is that when you're questioned, you will be questioned in the witness stand. There's going to be, let me give you an overview of what voir dire is going to look like. Voir dire is just what lawyers call jury selection. First of all, I'm going to be asking you some group questions, and I'll ask you to raise your hand or not raise your hand. The group questions, you do not have to say anything. In fact, you should not say anything. You should just raise your hand. Then, as I indicated before, I'll question you individually. The other panel members will be in the waiting room. The juror will come up and sit in the witness box. I'll do follow-up questions on the answers to your questionnaire, and the attorneys will have an opportunity to ask questions if they have any as well. So, that's what it's going to look like. All right. Just to give you some warning, it's kind of hard to control the temperature in this courtroom, so you might want to dress in layers in case it's chilly in some parts of the courtroom as opposed to others. You may bring something to drink with you into the courtroom as long as it has a cap on it. A couple of things about delays. I try to take care of all legal matters before you come in the morning and after you leave in the afternoon. But sometimes things can't be anticipated. And I want to apologize in advance should the lawyers and I have to confer on legal matters and that you'll be waiting. Please be assured that we make every effort to not waste your time, but we want to make sure that only the proper evidence is submitted to you for consideration in rendering your verdict. A lot of those issues have been dealt with pre-trial, but things may pop up during trial, so I hope you understand. Okay, I'm going to give you some preliminary instructions. There are rules of law that apply in a criminal case. A complaint is not evidence. It creates no inference or presumption of guilt. No member of the jury should in any way be prejudiced against the defendant because a complaint not guilty. Guilty means proved beyond a reasonable doubt. Not guilty means not proved beyond a reasonable doubt. To ensure both the defendant and the state receive a fair trial by an impartial jury, it'll be necessary for me and the attorneys to ask you some questions. Remember that you will be under oath when you answer our questions and that you must answer truthfully. The questioning is a very important part of the process. The reason for that is that all of us hold personal opinions and all of us have had life experiences. We wouldn't be human if that wasn't the case. The purpose of jury selection is to try to determine whether or not you hold certain opinions so strongly, or if something has happened to you or someone near and dear to you that would make it difficult, if not impossible, for you to be a fair and impartial juror. Put differently, the personal opinions or life experiences would so cloud your ability to listen to the evidence and render a decision based on the evidence alone. Please don't take offense to any of the questions that are asked. None of us wishes to pry into your personal affairs. Our sole purpose and our obligation is to ensure that the jurors who decide this case are neutral, open-minded, and fair. Neutral means that before you hear all the evidence, you are not leaning one way or the other on the question of whether the state has proved the case beyond a reasonable doubt. Open-minded means that you're willing to listen and consider all the evidence. And fair means that you will base your verdict on the evidence in the case and not on anything that is not presented in this case. We want you to bring your common sense, of course, into the jury room, but your verdict must be based on the evidence you hear during the trial. Your obligation is to honestly answer the questions and tell us of anything, even if you're not directly asked, that might affect your ability to be neutral, open-minded, and fair. Now, some of you that will be questioned will be excused from the panel, and I hope you don't take offense with that. It doesn't necessarily mean that anyone thinks that you're not a fair person. At this point, panel members, I'll ask that you all stand up and raise your right hand while Mr. Kramer administers your oath.
Do you affirm under penalty of perjury that you will truthfully answer all questions about your qualifications to serve as a juror? If so, please say I do.
Okay, thank you. Please sit down. All right, I'm going to start out with the group questions. So no verbal response is necessary. If you would just raise your hand when I indicate. Do any of you have any serious concerns about your health if you were to serve as a juror in this case? If so, please raise your hand. Okay, no hands are raised. Does anyone have trouble understanding or hearing what I am saying? Please raise your hand. No hands are raised. Our system of law presumes the defendant innocent If you serve as a juror, I will instruct you on the law. Let me go back to the burden of proof again. Does anyone disagree with the principle that the defendant is presumed innocent and the state has a burden of proof? If you disagree with that, please raise your hand. Okay, no hands are raised. If you serve as a juror, I'll instruct you as to the law that you should apply. You must follow the law even if you believe the law is or should be different. If you are willing to follow the law, please raise your hand. All hands are raised. If you are chosen as a juror, I will instruct you that proof beyond a reasonable doubt is such proof as ordinarily prudent men and women would act upon in their most important affairs. A reasonable doubt is a doubt based upon reason and common sense. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt does not mean beyond all possibility of doubt. Does anyone disagree with this principle of law? If so, raise your hand. No hands are raised. In arriving at your verdict, if you sit as a juror, the subject of penalty or punishment is not to be discussed or considered by you. This is a matter that lies solely with the court within the limits prescribed by law. The subject of penalty or punishment must not in any way affect your decision as to whether or not the state has proven the charges beyond a reasonable doubt. Are you willing to follow this instruction? If so, please raise your hand. All hands are raised. Under our system of justice, the jury must decide the case solely on the evidence produced in court and the law that the judge instructs, and not because of any bias, passion, prejudice, or sympathy. Would you be able to follow this principle of law? If so, please raise your hand. Okay. And, sir, you're juror number 33. Thank you. There will be police officers who will testify in this case, as well as other witnesses. I'm going to give you some guidelines in determining whether a witness is believable or not believable, but it's generally a matter of common sense. Things to look for, though, are how did the witness appear? Did he or she seem honest and sincere? Will the witness gain or lose if the case is decided a certain way? Was the witness's testimony consistent with other evidence in the case? And what is the witness's relationship to the parties? Would you be able to use these guidelines in deciding the credibility of a police officer just as you would any other witness? If so, please raise your hand. All hands are raised. Is there anyone here who would believe the testimony of a police officer just because he or she is in law enforcement? If so, please raise your hand. No hands are raised. Is there anyone here who would totally discount the testimony of a police officer just because of his or her position? No hands are raised. Okay. All right, do any of you know the lawyers in this case? Do any of you know the defendant? No hands are raised. Okay. You were given a list of possible witnesses earlier. They may not all testify. Do any of you know any of the witnesses on the list? And what I'd like you to do is raise your hand even if you're not sure. All right, no hands are raised. All right. We expect to start opening statements by December 8th. It may be earlier, but our best estimate right now is that we will start on December 8th. We anticipate to be being finished before Christmas Eve. That's our best estimate. Don't be concerned if we do not finish by Christmas Eve. I intend to take Christmas Eve and that weekend off and start the following Monday, December 27th, if we're not done. So you won't be missing Christmas Eve or Christmas with your family and friends. If you're chosen as a juror, the trial will start at 9 o'clock. It'll go until 4:30 or 5. There'll be a 20-minute break in the morning and a 20-minute break in the afternoon, and we do take a lunch break for an hour. So that basically is what the schedule will look like if you're chosen as a juror. Please remember while court is in recess that you should not talk to anyone involved in this case, nor should you discuss the case among yourselves. During the recess, you might see the attorneys or the parties in the hallways. Don't take offense if they don't stop and talk to you. Everyone involved in the case has been ordered to have no contact or communication with any member of the jury panel, and any violation of that rule could jeopardize the trial, and that prohibition will continue until a verdict has been rendered. Okay, at this point, I'm going to do individual voir dire. So I would like juror number 33 to stay in the courtroom, and if the other panel members will follow the deputy to your waiting room. Thank you. Okay, Mr. 33, will you please come up here and take a seat right next to me? And after you take a seat, will you please remove your mask? How are you doing today? Okay. All right. I wanted to circle back and ask you a question when you didn't raise your hand. Okay, the jury's verdict has to be based on the evidence alone that is presented in the case. And if you're chosen as a juror, you can't let passion, prejudice, bias, or sympathy affect your decision as to whether or not the state has proved the charges beyond a reasonable doubt. And you didn't raise your hand stating that you would follow that instruction. Can you tell me what your thoughts are on that issue?
I just think in an ideal world, it would be, that's what you strive for, but just based on who I am, I'm just trying to be as honest with you as I possibly could. And I have strong feelings about this case,
Okay. Tell me about your strong feelings.
When I see the victim, I see a lot of, the victim looks a lot like my students who I teach. I can't, it's really hard to separate that. I've been teaching for a long time, and I think that's a big part of it. So. Okay.
So you would be thinking about your student, do you think, or your students that
Yes, probably, yeah.
at the time, and associating them with Mr. Wright?
Yeah, I would rather not, but I think it's really difficult
Okay.
separation. So.
Do you think that sympathy, I mean, I think it's natural to be sympathetic, and when a young person dies, do you think that would prevent you from really looking at the evidence and rendering a decision based solely on the evidence?
I have to be honest.
Yeah.
I don't know. I would be the best pick. I wish I could.
Okay.
I'd love to do jury duty, but
You can't set that aside then.
if I'm being perfectly honest, I don't know if I can.
Okay.
I mean, that's just trying to be as honest as I can. So.
All right. So that would affect whether or not how you looked at the case and what your decision would be on whether the defendant is guilty or not guilty.
I know. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Okay. Counsel, Sanquad? All right, Mr. Frank?
Juror 33, certainly do appreciate your candor with the court and your answers today. You know, in filling out the jury questionnaire, which I recognized some time ago, you know, one of the questions you were asked is that same question. You know, could you set aside biases and interests and prejudices and be a fair and impartial juror? Do you remember your answer?
Well, I remember filling out the questionnaire in the summertime, and I probably said I probably could.
Yeah, you wrote yes.
Yeah. Now, being in session in school for, you know, since the beginning of September, I think. Since the beginning of September, I think that has influenced a lot.
And you know, you have to be the one to let us know, right? I mean,
Right.
Not judging you or anything of that nature. All we ask are for honest answers,
Right.
certainly. And yet, you know, it seems in your questionnaire you were pretty resolute, right? When you just wrote yes to that answer. And yet, you know, what the judge is asking you is, it's okay for you to have those. In fact, in one of your answers, you recognize that jurors sometimes have biases, right? You had a very insightful answer about the jury system, right? But you sound like a person who recognizes that biases, people have them. And that is probably, would you agree, a key to not letting biases infect decisions?
Yeah.
So, you know, what we're asking you to do is, as a juror, recognize you have those biases and don't let them affect the decisions you make based on evidence. You would know that those biases are not evidence, right? So that's the fundamental question. That's why I asked for the opportunity to ask you the question that way. So as you sit here, can you answer that question for me? Can you recognize your biases, that they're not evidence, and just decide the case on what goes on here in the courtroom?
I don't know if I'm able to separate that where I'm at right now. when I answered that in the summertime, maybe I was a little bit more confident in my ability. And I'm just trying to be honest to protect the integrity of the trial. So,
Anything that you think I should know about you to understand that answer better? Does that question make?
No, it's just, I've been teaching in a very, urban setting for a long time, and I do that because I love it, and I hear a lot of stories from my students and interactions, and I think that has influenced my view on a lot of things. So,
Thank you, Your Honor.
sorry.
Thank you so much for being honest about this, and teachers. So have a wonderful rest of the day, and you're done with jury duty. Okay, you can go home if you want to. All right, thank you. Deputy, could we have a moment before? Okay, just for the record, I think it's obvious why this juror was dismissed for cause. Both sides agreed. All right, I just want to make sure that, are we missing one juror? Is 41 here now? Okay.
Well, there's 41.
So we just got news that 41 has postponed.
Oh,
Just in
okay.
the last 5 minutes, probably.
Yeah, 41, yeah, they're entitled to postpone at any time. So there is no 41. Okay, so just so everybody's on board, it's going to be 35, 39, 40, and 44.
Judge, 44 is not here either.
Oh, 44 is not here.
44 did not appear this morning.
Okay. They're still trying to get a hold of him or her, right? Okay. Okay, is counsel ready for the next juror? That would be number 35. Good morning.
Good morning.
Juror number 35. Okay, you may remove your mask. Okay, Just a couple follow-up questions on your questionnaire. Thank you for filling it out for us. Okay, in response to one of the questions, you indicated that you had a somewhat negative general impression of defendant Kimberly Potter, and you had a somewhat positive general impression of Daunte Wright. I guess my question to you is, would you, notwithstanding any general feelings that you had about the parties here, or Mr. Wright and Ms. Potter, would you be able to listen to the evidence and base your decision solely on the evidence that's presented in this case and the law that I give to you?
Yes, I would.
Okay. You also stated that you've carried signs, you've been involved in demonstrations, and that you've carried signs including Black Lives Matter, Justice for Breonna Taylor, and Justice for Daunte Wright. Okay. Is that going to interfere with your ability to be objective and take a look at the evidence and decide the case based solely on that evidence? Or is that going to cloud your judgment and make you automatically believe that the defendant is guilty?
To your first question, no, I don't think it will cloud my judgment. I do believe in innocent until proven guilty. I do have. Can I move it more towards?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Is that better? Okay. Should I repeat?
Yeah, why don't you start over?
Okay.
Okay.
I do not think that would cloud my judgment, as I do believe in the praxis of innocent before guilty, or innocent until proven guilty.
All right. So as you sit here today, you can give Kim Potter the presumption of innocence.
Yes, I can.
And you can make or abide by my instruction that the state has to prove her guilty of any charge beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yes, I can.
Okay.
I have a question. Is
Yes.
that all right? I have a flight on December 20th that I'm going on a trip with my family until January 7th. So I'm not sure what that means in this
Okay.
case.
Are these prepaid tickets?
They are.
Okay. And I suppose you haven't talked to your family about delaying the trip?
I have not. No.
Okay. So you're not sure whether or not they would agree to delay the trip because you're on jury duty?
They would not, as the timing of the trip is very specific due to some of my family members' jobs.
Okay. If the parties chose you as a juror, could you listen to the evidence and concentrate on the evidence, notwithstanding the fact that your family's on vacation?
I would find that difficult.
Okay. So you would find it difficult to concentrate on what's going on in the courtroom?
Yes,
Why?
because this is a trip that has been postponed since before COVID, and it's to visit my brother who lives elsewhere.
Okay. Thank you for letting me know about that. All right. Could we have sidebar, please? Okay, the dates that your family has planned this trip is December 20 to what?
January 7th.
All right. If we didn't get done, I mean, we expect to be done. If we didn't get done, would you be able to join your family later?
I would not due to the price of tickets.
You what?
I would not due to the price of tickets.
Okay. All right. Sidebar, please. Okay. You're excused from the jury.
Okay.
All right, and I hope you have a great trip. You
Thank
probably have not been able to take trips for a while, right? And you were really looking forward to this. All right, have
Thank
a
you.
great time.
Sorry
okay?
about that. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, we are. Oh, wait. Not yet, Deputy? Okay, let me make a record first. All right. I decided to dismiss the juror for cause because of her trip. This is over the state's objection. And I don't know if either party wants to put anything on the record. Okay. I did that because, it was her prepaid trip. It looks like during COVID, no one's been able to travel. Her family is going over the holidays. And she also indicated that if she were forced to stay, she wouldn't be able to concentrate on the evidence. Okay. Now next juror is number 39. Okay, thank you, Deputy. I think we're ready. Hello, juror number 39. Please have a seat right next to me. And you may remove your mask. Okay. Oh, you can take your mask off.
Oh, okay.
Okay. All right. Just a couple of follow-up questions on the answers to the questionnaire. Thank you for filling it out. I know it was a lengthy questionnaire. The first question was, What do you know about this case from media reports? Do you know anything, or have you heard
I don't know
anything?
anything about.
Pardon?
I don't know anything about this case except seeing the news, you know.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did you learn about this case from the news?
The incident when they were showing over the TV.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what did you see?
I just saw what was happening.
You saw the video.
Yeah.
Is
the
that
video.
right?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that, how many times have you watched the video?
I'm not sure exactly, but I saw a couple of times. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You stated that you had a somewhat negative general impression of Kimberly Potter. Can you tell me why you feel that way?
Pardon again?
My question was, you stated on your questionnaire, you checked the box that you had a somewhat negative general impression of Kimberly Potter. Can you tell me why you feel that way?
I'm not sure about what I put there, but basically it was just, if I remember well what I wrote over there. Yeah.
Well, why don't you just tell me, what's your general impression of the defendant? Or do you have one?
Except that I think what I wrote there was just like I'm not sure how the case and what was the purpose of the person, and my impression was just maybe it was very much better to make sure that, you know, to consider in a positive way, like when you handle such cases.
Okay.
Yeah, it does that.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite understand what you said. I mean, do you have any general impressions of the defendant? From watching the video, you stated that you watched the video.
As I said, I'm not sure what was the purpose behind and how the incident take place, but by looking it something comes to your mind quickly, and that is it would have been better if been taken more necessary, consideration before the actions take place.
Okay,
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
When I was asking group questions, I asked the question about the burden of proof. And my question was that our system of justice presumes the defendant innocent of the charges against her. Do you agree with that? I mean, if I instructed you, if you were a juror, and I instructed you that the state has a burden of proving the defendant guilty beyond a reasonable doubt, would you be able to follow that?
Of course, because the judge is somebody who started the whole case and investigated the whole case, and studied thoroughly. So
Okay.
yeah, whatever rules.
So you
says.
accept that principle.
Yeah.
All right. And you will require the state of Minnesota to produce evidence beyond a reasonable doubt before you would find that the defendant is guilty, correct?
Yeah.
All right. And as she sits here today, can you give her the presumption of innocence? Can you just presume she's innocent right now as you sit here today?
As I said, the judges. I don't have knowledge about that, and
Okay.
I never.
Yeah. So you don't know anything yet?
I don't know anything about
So
it,
you
yeah.
can presume she's innocent right now, right?
Until the judge is proven. I mean,
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I don't know much about that.
Oh, I see that you're a teacher. Okay. What grade do you teach?
For now, I'm not. I'm not teaching anymore.
Okay, you're not. You're on sabbatical or something, huh? Okay. Now, you said that your job will make it difficult for you to serve. Can you explain your answer to that? I mean, I guess the question was, our best prediction is that we'll start the case on December 8th, and we expect to be finished before Christmas Eve. The question was, is there any significant hardship or reason why you cannot serve during this period of time?
Time availability is the one.
Yeah. I mean, is there any reason you can't serve as a juror
Yeah.
because of some personal reason?
Yes, and again, I haven't read anything about this case as well,
Mm-hmm.
and that was second reason. I mean, when I will have to give any kind of outcome, I like to answer what I know, but concerning to this case, I haven't.
Okay.
Yeah, read to.
But will you be able to serve if you were chosen?
Besides my time, yeah,
Okay.
Yeah.
So you can, right?
yeah,
All right.
unless,
I think what you're, please correct me if I'm wrong,
yeah,
but you've never served on a jury
yes,
before,
yes,
right?
it's
Okay.
my first time. That's why.
You know, to tell you the truth, I mean, most of the people that we've talked to haven't been on a jury before.
Okay, yeah.
So a lot of people in the group that we're asking questions of are in the same position as you are,
Mhm.
okay?
Yes.
So don't feel that just because you've never served on a jury, you wouldn't be a good juror. In fact, what we're looking for is jurors that will be fair to both sides.
Mhm.
Jurors that will keep an open mind and listen to all the evidence before making a decision
Okay.
as to whether or not the state has proved its case beyond a reasonable doubt. Okay?
Mhm.
So, not knowing anything about the case is a good thing, okay? Because you should only base your decision
Mhm.
on the evidence that you hear in court
Yes.
and not on anything that isn't presented in court. Do you think you could do that?
Yes, but if anything happen around the way, then I will let you know.
Okay.
I mean, like,
No,
Yeah,
is there... We expect to start
uh-huh.
December 8th or maybe a day or two sooner,
Okay.
and we should be done by before Christmas Eve. Is there anything between December 8th and December 23rd that is a hardship for you or would prevent you from serving during that period of time?
I haven't decided now, but I had a trip on my mind. Like,
You have what?
to go one trip on my head, on my. I just think it, but I haven't decided. I haven't booked the ticket.
Okay, well, don't.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
if you're chosen as a juror, you shouldn't book any trips. Okay, can you refrain from booking any trips until it's determined whether or not you're going to be a juror?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and the other thing is that when you come to the language, also
Okay.
English is my second language. It's
All
not my
right.
first language.
Okay. What's your
And-
first language?
My first language, I speak a couple of languages, but my best language is Somali.
Okay.
Yeah,
Can you understand what I'm saying?
I do understand. Yes.
Okay.
I do understand.
Do you have any concerns about understanding the evidence if you were chosen as a juror?
Yeah, I do understand most of the words, but when you come to some terms like low terms are different.
Okay.
Yeah.
Up to this point,
Mhm.
have you been able to understand?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
I do understand.
Do you think that your understanding of English will be sufficient to allow you to sit as a juror?
I do communicate everywhere, but as I said,
Okay.
some words I have to be careful. You know.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, if you had a question about what something meant, would you, and you were chosen as a juror, and you were in the jury room, would you feel comfortable asking other jurors what a particular word meant?
Yeah, I can ask. I
Okay.
can ask. Yeah.
All right. So, I just want to make sure you're comfortable too, and that you feel that you can understand what will be going on when the trial starts. Are you comfortable with your English understanding to sit as a juror?
To set any standard, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. All right, counsel? The attorneys get a chance to ask you some questions.
Oh, okay.
Good morning.
Morning.
You know, I would like to follow up with you on the language question. I had a hard time understanding a couple things you said. How long have you been in the country here, in the United States?
Around 10 years, yeah.
I'm sorry?
10 years.
10 years?
Yeah,
And when you came here, did you speak English at all?
Yeah, whatever I know, I knew. Now, I never studied English in here. I mean,
So I'm hearing you right. You didn't know a word, but then you've learned it over the last 10 years. Is that right?
no, I haven't. I knew English when I came here.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever I know now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you know, when Judge Chu was asking you questions as you sat there, do you remember those questions?
Some of them, yeah.
Well, what I wanted to ask you about is that to some of the questions, I noticed that you raised your hand slowly after watching the other jurors raise their hands. Do you remember doing that?
Yeah.
And were you kind of following their lead in terms of the correct answer to answer? Or were you hesitant? Or tell me what was your thought process?
As I said, because this is the a law matters, and I was very much careful to what I understand. So I didn't know whether is allowed to ask the judge to repeat that word, but I was taking my time to understand.
Okay. Do you remember filling out this questionnaire? Do you remember doing this?
Yes.
Did anyone help you fill out this questionnaire? Did you work on it with anybody else?
No,
Did anyone read this to you, for example?
no.
Are you right or left-handed? I'm just curious.
No,
The question is, are you right-handed or left-handed?
right-handed.
Right-handed? Well, when Judge Chu was asking you about your impression of Officer Potter, I couldn't quite hear your answer. It may be my hearing, too.
Okay.
You were talking a little too fast for me. But you checked the somewhat negative check mark for her. And I wanted to know what your answer was because I couldn't hear it the first time. Why did you check somewhat negative here on the form? If you recall even doing that.
You mean why I mark it wrongly?
Yeah.
Unless I see.
Well, here's we're trying to do social distancing here. So I represent to you that this is your questionnaire for Juror 39.
Okay.
I represent to you, the question was this: from what you have seen, read, or heard, do you have a general impression of Defendant Kimberly Potter? Okay, that was the question.
Okay.
And then there's a check mark here, and you checked somewhat negative. Okay, so you had.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember now.
Okay.
As I said now.
Now go really slow for me.
Okay. Yeah, I was answering to the other judge now. I was saying now, when the case was handling, I would like if, I don't know what was the purpose, what was the idea behind, but I was willing or wanted at that moment to be taken more careful, to handle the case.
What was your last phrase? To take more, to take more careful. What did you say? Give me the last 4 words, because I couldn't hear you.
I mean, when the case was handling, to be handle it in a careful way, rather than using what happened now. That's the reason why I marked it.
Are you saying that you didn't feel as if the case was handled by Officer Potter in a careful way? Is that what you're saying? Help me with that.
If you remember, my first word was I didn't know what was the purpose, what was happening,
Okay.
what was, when you're charging, when you're looking and when you are there, it's different stories. So I was saying, many ways of handling it could be taken more careful. If the thing is, I'm not sure how it happened, the case.
Okay. So are you saying that she could have been more careful? Is that why? That's why you're somewhat negative about it.
Yeah, that was the thing.
And why do you say she should have been more careful?
I mean, we take care always when we are dealing with human being life, and that was why I said so.
Well, do you understand the trial, if you're picked, is about what happened?
Yeah.
And in part of that was what she was thinking about and why she did certain things. You understand that?
Mm-hmm.
So the issue of carefulness is something that the jury decides
Yeah.
after the case is presented. You understand that?
Okay. Yeah. That's what I said too. Because I'm not here to judge, but I'm just answering your question, what you said, yeah.
And you indicated that about Daunte Wright, that you had a neutral impression. Do you remember filling this out for Daunte Wright? Let me read you the question, okay?
Mm-hmm.
The question was, from what you have seen, read, or heard, do you have a general impression of Daunte Wright? And you checked neutral. Do you remember checking that?
Yeah, as I said, because according to what I believe, my faith involves here too. When I'm charging, I have to have evidence, and I don't have evidence in this case. Whatever. So that's why I say, at the moment, I'm not there to charge, because even my beliefs cannot allow me to charge somebody without having evidence.
So you checked neutral because you didn't really know what he did.
Yeah, I didn't know none of them what was the case. Yeah.
And according to your questionnaire, you saw the tape about 2 to 3 times. Do you recall filling it out the form that way?
But come again?
That you saw the video 2 to 3 times?
Oh yeah.
Where did you see that?
I think it was the news I watch most of the time, like in the house.
Do you remember what channel you were watching? By chance?
Yeah, I think it was CNN, and the other one was a local one. I don't know.
Where do you teach, by the way?
I'm not teaching now.
You're not teaching?
Mm-mm.
Are you working now?
I'm still looking at a job, yeah, but I'm teaching afternoon daycare now.
You're teaching at a daycare?
For now, few hours.
3 hours a day? It says here that you have a number of children.
Yes,
How many children do you have?
I have 9 children.
How many?
9.
9? And how old are they? What's the range?
The oldest one is 17 years and a half. 17 and a half, the oldest one.
And how about the youngest?
1 year.
And do you remember being asked about your opinions regarding police work? I'm putting you on the spot. This on page 7. Do you remember doing that? And indicating that you had no opinion as to each question that was answered. Do you remember this?
No, I don't know.
Your questionnaire indicates you have a bachelor's degree.
Yes.
What's your degree in, if I could ask?
I have a Islamic law degree.
It's a what?
I have Islamic law degree, Arabic and Islamic studies degree.
From
And-
what?
and
Where'd you go?
Minnesota University. Islamic
University of
studies.
Minnesota.
And also I have a couple of other studies here.
Pardon me?
I have a couple of other studies too. I mean,
Tell me about those.
teaching.
You have a teaching degree.
Yeah, no, yeah. They evaluated here and they said I have to do more in order to complete the degree.
When you filled out this questionnaire, it said you were a full-time teacher. Were you full-time in the summer when you filled this out?
No, when the corona happened, I stopped.
Do you remember filling this out that you were a full-time teacher, though?
When I was fulfilling, I just had in mind the one I was doing before and the afternoon classes. Yeah.
And when you filled it out this summer, you said that the length of the trial may be difficult for you because the job would make it difficult. Do you remember filling that out? But that's no longer the case.
No, actually, when I left the school, school job, I started Uber work, and I was thinking about that.
Well, let me ask you this: if you're selected for the jury in this case, the case is going to take a couple weeks. Will you have any income during those 2 weeks to assist your family of 9?
No,
Will that be a hardship for you not to have any income?
exactly.
And is anyone going to pay you while you're on the jury if you are selected? I mean,
No.
so you're out of significant income,
Is it?
which is a hardship on your family. Yes?
Yes.
And the last question of the questionnaire was that you were asked, do you want to serve as a juror in this case? And you said you weren't sure, not sure. You remember that?
What did I say? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think I was referring the same case of which I mentioned earlier. The work, you know that.
Okay.
Yeah, that is. I'm just following the same thing as I mentioned.
May I have a moment, Your Honor?
Yes. Yes, oh yes.
A couple more questions. I appreciate your patience.
Okay.
Okay. Going back to that degree from the University of Minnesota, what year was that?
I done on 2016, I think. 2016, I think.
2016?
Yeah.
And it's Islamic studies?
Yes. Arabic and Islamic study.
And it was a BA?
Yes.
You know, if you're in the jury room and don't understand something,
Okay.
given your language, and appreciates that English is your second language,
Okay.
are you going to ask the fellow jurors what certain things mean and have them explain them to you?
If I don't understand.
Yeah, if you don't understand something, are you going to have the jurors explain it to you?
Yeah.
Okay. And that would include legal concepts and, you know, all sorts of ideas in the case. Isn't that right?
Yes.
So you would rely on your fellow jurors to help you explain what the law is,
Yeah. Sometimes.
because a lot of the terms are not familiar to you. Is that right?
That's true.
Including the presumption of innocence, for example.
Yes.
It's not something you use all the time, or rarely, right?
Yeah.
And proof beyond a reasonable doubt is a concept you don't use all the time, if at all. Fair?
Yes.
May I inquire here just a second?
Did not ask you about is the law and who defines the law, right? So here in court, the judge is like the teacher. Right? The judge tells us what the law is. So if jurors need to understand concepts, legal concepts, the judge gives definitions of them. Do you see what I mean?
Yes.
And so if there's a legal concept,
Yes.
And so if there's a legal concept you don't understand, the judge is going to define those for you. Do you understand?
Yes.
And the judge will not only read those to you, will tell you and will read those instructions to you, but the judge will also give you a written copy of those definitions. So when Mr. Eng was asking you about the burden of proof, the presumption of innocence, the judge is going to give you instructions. She's going to read them and give you written instructions. So if you have to know the meaning of a certain term, you're going to have those instructions from the judge. So knowing that, would you be able to follow the law that the judge gives to you in serving as a juror?
Yes.
And the way I understood what you were saying is you have been doing some teaching before, but the COVID pandemic has affected that somehow? Not teaching as much?
Actually, the school has, I think, closed that department somehow, and it came at right time. I mean, during the COVID-19, and since then, that COVID happened, and I was sitting at home.
And so to do that, it sounds like you've done some driving for Uber.
Yes.
And if you're a juror, you'd still be able to do some driving for Uber on the weekends and maybe even a little bit at night.
Well, I only drove, I think, 1 month or 2 months around it. Then, since then, currently, right now, I'm not driving, but I was trying to.
And
because the security-wise, also, there was some issues about security, and then I didn't want to take that risk as well.
okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not driving right now anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So it isn't a trial that would.
Yeah, but I'm still looking at job,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Still job
Yes.
hunting. Yeah.
Sick, yeah.
And do you know that jurors do get some compensation from the court for being a juror? Some money from the state for being a juror every day.
I don't know.
And
Yes.
I mean, I'm not going to mislead you. It's not a lot of money, but it's a little bit of money to help.
Yeah.
Would that help, with supporting your family?
Yeah, I think so.
And we expect the trial to last, until maybe December 23rd. Today's December 2nd, so maybe 3 more weeks. Well, and not even starting until next Wednesday. So, from December 8th to December 23rd is roughly 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
You think you can make it through that period if you were asked to serve as a juror?
Yeah, but as I said now, I start 2 o'clock until 9 o'clock afternoon class that I'm teaching, daycare.
Tell me the times again.
Currently. The job currently I'm doing is in a daycare kids, so I start 9 o'clock, 2 o'clock afternoon until 9.
And so you wouldn't be able to go there until you got done here, right? For the weeks that were in trial.
Yeah, I have to tell them also.
You what? I'm sorry.
I mean, I haven't tell the bosses of that place anything as from now. I mean,
Okay.
so I have to tell them.
You would have to tell them,
Mm-hmm.
and because you would be on jury duty, you would not be able to work until you left here at 5 o'clock, let's say.
Okay.
Do you think you could do that?
I will tell them, but I'm not sure because I don't think they have other people for now. So I'm sure they will. But I will tell them.
And you don't know for sure that.
Yeah, I don't know what they will say.
Okay. And it would be for jury duty. right?
Okay.
So you could ask them and see what they would do.
Okay.
And if it were possible, you could still work after you get done here for a few hours at night, right?
Okay.
Okay. Mr. Eng had asked you some questions about when your impressions, and you checked somewhat negative and neutral. And what I understood you to say is that you can't make judgments because you don't know what happened.
Correct.
And so you understand, as a juror, that's what we want, right?
Yes.
We want people over there with an open mind about what happened.
Okay.
And are you telling us that that's what you would do as a juror, keep an open mind?
Okay.
Do you understand what I mean?
Yes.
And you would not make a decision as a juror until you heard all of the evidence.
Okay.
Is that, would you do that?
Sure. Yes.
Your Honor, can I have just a moment, please? Your Honor, should we maybe go back? I just want to clarify where we are in the process.
Oh, I know this has gone on for a long time, and I apologize. The reason I think everybody's asking you so many questions is that, we're concerned about whether or not you understand English well enough to sit as a juror, okay? And you told me you speak a number of different languages. I don't think anyone here speaks two languages fluently. That. Our concern is, for example, you're probably really fluent in Somali and the other two languages that you said you speak. I don't want you to get stricken off this jury unless we really have a concern about you understanding the English language, because it's so important that you understand every single word that is being said. Because this is a criminal case, and all cases are important, but we've got a case here where any juror needs to understand every word that is being spoken. Legal concepts, principles, nobody really, if you haven't served on a jury before and you haven't gone to law school, that's not a problem. But understanding every word spoken is a necessity in order to be able to sit. Would you feel more comfortable not being on this jury, or would you feel comfortable being on this jury, given your understanding of English?
As I said, with the matters of legal-wise, I'm not very much confident here.
Mm-hmm.
Terms, communication, otherwise it's fine, it's not a problem. But when you come to the deep words, because you said this is a very critical matter, it's not something that I have to take chances, but
Okay.
I really feel like.
Have you been able to understand the words that have been spoken? Okay. So, it's okay if you don't feel comfortable sitting on the jury because English is your second language. That's perfectly okay. On the other hand, if you feel completely comfortable sitting as a juror, given your understanding of the English language, that's okay too. So I need to hear from you.
I'm not very much confident
Okay.
with my with the terms that I might not understand.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you don't feel confident that you would be able to understand everything?
Yes.
Okay. And so I take it that because of that, you think it would be best that you not be a juror in this case?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. This questioning went on for a long time,
Yeah.
and I appreciate you sitting through all this. I'm going to excuse you as a juror, okay?
Thank you.
And I bet those 9 kids keep you busy.
Thank you.
You have your own daycare,
Okay.
just in your family.
Yes.
All right. Have a wonderful day, okay?
Thank you.
Okay, just for the record, the state objected to a for-cause dismissal of this juror, and I think he was honest with me when he said he just doesn't feel confident that he understands the English language enough to sit as a juror. So, did you want to say something, Mr. Frank?
I do, Your Honor. We still object to the court's granting cause. I think what he candidly said is he didn't understand, or he was concerned about not understanding legal concepts. And I point to the next juror's questionnaire that says he wants a better definition of beyond a reasonable doubt. Everybody has trouble understanding our legal concepts. And the court expressed an understandable concern about him respond to just simply leading questions. But the court essentially kind of led him into his concern about not understanding a matter and giving him that out to say, I don't understand these legal concepts. That is the bottom line to me, is he expressed concern about understanding legal concepts. That's true of a lot of people, and you're going to give full definitions. What he said at the very beginning of your questioning with him is he's able to communicate okay. And so the man achieved a bachelor's degree at the University of Minnesota and is continuing on to get a teaching certificate. He knows various languages, so he understands what communicating in different languages is all about. So I really, Your Honor, taking the court's time, because I do think it's important to make this record that I don't think he was disqualified for cause from jury service.
Okay. Did you want to respond?
Well, your ruling is consistent with a previous juror, first name all. So the court has made a consistent decision, and there's no error here.
All right. Okay. I think it's time for our morning break. So let's take 20 minutes. Just to let you know, we've got, that was number 39. So, okay. Zach, is 41 here?
So the next one is number 40.
And then 44, right?
44 is also postponed now.
Oh, okay, we've had two postponements.
Which one was that?
41 and 44 have both postponed. So we only have number 40 left. Okay. I think we're still on track to have juror number 7 come in at 1:30.
That's correct, Judge.
Okay. And before that, I'll do the findings on the record. Okay, let's take a break.
Morning, everyone. Tim Blotz here in the Fox 9 newsroom. We thank you for watching this morning's coverage of the jury selection in the Kim Potter trial for the death of Daunte Wright in that traffic stop incident from last April. So far this morning, for those of you who are joining in or may have joined in, no new jurors added to the jury today. When we left yesterday afternoon, they had a total of 9, making great progress. They added 5 new jurors to the list yesterday. In fact, here's what we have so far, and these are seated in the jury. So far today, they've gone through 3 potential jurors, but have not seated anyone to the jury. The first one this morning was a man. He had very strong feelings about the case. He's a teacher, and he says that he associates Daunte Wright with some of his students, and he would find it hard to be impartial. So the Judge Regina Chu, dismissed him for cause. And then the second potential juror this morning, a woman who is leaving on a trip during the trial. She's already rescheduled once because of the pandemic. She was dismissed for cause too. And then the third potential juror, juror number 39, who they've been questioning at length here, a man, his native language is Somali, and English is his second language, and he testified to the court that, yes, he did see the video, the body camera video of this case from Miss Potter, but really didn't know much about the case. He'd never served on a jury before. He used to work as a teacher, doesn't currently work as a teacher, and is an afternoon daycare teacher. But the bottom line, I think the judge seemed to be concerned about his language and would he understand the processes of the court, and he was dismissed for cause by the judge. So this is basically where we sit so far today. We still have several more positions that we have to fill on the jury, plus 2 alternates. We're looking for 12 jurors and 2 alternates. And they were widely believed that maybe they could get through this yet today, but we will see. We got a long ways to go yet until the end of the court today. The trial is set to begin next Wednesday, December 8th, and the judge has repeatedly told many of the potential jurors that she really wants to wrap this up by Christmas Eve. Now, there was a caveat there yesterday where she was asking the attorneys, all of the attorneys in this case, to check with their witnesses to see if they could possibly move up the start of this case by a day or 2 if they're able to impanel a jury yet this week, so that she is not running up against that Christmas Eve self-imposed deadline of having everything wrapped up. I think the judge seemed to indicate yesterday that she was concerned about perhaps if this goes to jury close to Christmas Eve, that the jury would be out for Christmas Eve day, Christmas Day, and then that Sunday, then come back. So they would be gone for a couple of days in the middle of their deliberations, and she's really wanting to avoid that. That is still undetermined yet, to my knowledge, as to if they are going to start on time next Wednesday or come perhaps a day or 2 early. So what we want to do here during the break, and Judge Chu has been very good about keeping everything on time here. When she says they're taking a 20-minute break, she means 20 minutes. And she starts and runs her I joked about this yesterday, she tends to run her court schedule like a train schedule from the old days, and she's very much on time. So in about 16 minutes from now or so, we expect them to go back into court. In the meantime, what we're going to do is we're going to pull up one of the testimonies yesterday, some of the questioning from one of the jurors that was actually impaneled on this jury. And forgive me for a moment, I'm going to speak to our producer, Amanda Bishop. Amanda, do we know which one we're going to go to here? All right, we're going to go to Juror 21. And again, this is questioning from yesterday in court. Here it is.
Hello, juror number 21. Please have a seat, and you may remove your mask. Thank you for filling out the questionnaire. I just have a couple of follow-up questions, and the attorneys may have some too, okay? You stated that you had a somewhat negative general impression of Defendant Kimberly Potter and a somewhat negative impression of Daunte Wright. My question is whether or not you could listen to the evidence in this case and base your decision only on the evidence in this case, your common sense and my instructions, and not base it on some preconceived general impression you formed before.
Yes, I could.
Okay, thank you. There was a question on the questionnaire, do you believe your community has been negatively or positively affected by any of the demonstrations? And your answer was, I believe people are asking us to see. I don't remember if you remember that answer, but could you explain what you meant?
I think, yes, there's negative impacts, but yes, there's a lot of positive impacts because it's raising conversations that we haven't had before. Mm-hmm. And I think that was positive, but it's happening in a negative fashion. So,
in a negative fashion.
Well, there's a lot of things going on around there. There was a lot of looting and stuff that I consider negative. But I think a lot of the things that people were trying to say were positive things that were hard conversations to have.
Gotcha.
Getting us to open our eyes.
You have a brother-in-law that's in law enforcement?
I do. Well, he works with the Department of Commerce. So.
Okay, so what's his position?
Special agent.
Oh, okay. So FBI or?
I don't know exactly. He's part of the Department of Commerce, so it's not FBI.
Okay.
He works out in DC.
All right. Do you have a lot of contact with him?
On holidays.
Okay.
Yes.
A close friend of yours was a victim of a crime. It was a break-in.
Yes.
And did your friend ever express any dissatisfaction with how the police responded?
No, actually, I was there. It's my neighbor, and it wasn't. The police acted very professionally, and everything was handled wonderfully.
Okay. Did they ever find the culprit?
Yeah, the guy walked into his living room and just sat down on the couch. So the police did come, and the guy was escorted out. And
okay. Uninvited guest.
it was yes, a very uninvited guest at 3 a.m.
All right. And you served on a jury in a criminal case, and that case was about protesters trespassing, right?
Correct.
Is there anything about that case and sitting on a jury in that case that makes you think you would not be a good juror in this case?
No.
Okay. How did you like jury duty when you sat on that case?
I found it informative.
Okay. So it wasn't terrible, right?
No, it wasn't terrible.
All
No,
right. And would you describe it as a learning experience, maybe?
Definitely.
Okay. Are you willing to serve as a juror in this case?
If I'm called upon, yes.
Okay, good. All right. Is there anything that we should know about you that was not on the questionnaire that would impact your ability to be a fair and impartial juror?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, thank you. Counsel?
Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
I'll call you 21. That's the jury you are. I'm going to ask you just a few questions about your answers to the questions in the questionnaire. How long ago was that jury trial you sat on? Was it more than 4 years ago?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, roughly 10 years, I'd say.
All right. And you do mention in your juror questionnaire, and you've already told the judge, explain that to the judge, that you had a somewhat negative impression of my client, our client, Kim Potter, and you had a somewhat negative impression of Daunte Wright. And your answer to the Daunte Wright reason is, I don't condone fleeing from a police officer. And is that the reason that you have a negative?
This is one of them, yeah, that would be the
Okay. And also on our client's reason, I believe when training in fellow officers, your actions should be more thought out. Have you seen the video in this case, sir?
yes, I have.
Okay. I'm sorry, the answer's right down here, 2 to 8 times. Have you seen it? That's what you say here, I don't know.
Yeah, that was quite a while ago when it was out quite a bit when it first happened. That's when
If you're asked, or if you're called upon to be a juror in this case, could you rely on the evidence in the courtroom here and not rely on any of the video you observed, or for that matter, any newspaper articles, magazine articles that you've read about this? Could you keep those outside the courtroom?
I've ceased reading any articles about this since you guys instructed me to, so yes, I think I could.
On page 9 of answer 19, how favorable or unfavorable are you about Blue Lives Matter? And you say you're neutral, and then you state, it feels like marketing. Of course, all lives matter, but cops aren't dying at nearly the same rate. What did you exactly mean by that?
When it seemed like a marketing aspect to counter Black Lives Matter and kind of counter the thought process that they're trying to get across, and I didn't necessarily agree with the process.
With the Cop Lives Matter?
I don't disagree that Cop Lives Matter.
Right.
It just seemed like it was to counter something else that was another.
I guess my question pertained to cops aren't dying at nearly the same rate. What did you mean by that?
Well, Black Lives Matter is trying to draw attention to people dying at an alarming rate, and I think that's what they're trying to do.
Are you taking that from your belief that more blacks are dying at the hands of police officers than police officers are dying in the state? Or for that matter in the United States?
Essentially, yes.
But you don't have any statistics on that, do you?
No, I didn't look up any statistics.
Okay.
So.
And would you keep that out of the courtroom when
Yes.
you decide this case? Rely on the evidence? You have to answer yes or no. Court reporter. The court reporter, if it takes it down.
Okay.
Why don't you ask your question again?
Okay. That might be a tough job, Judge.
Sorry.
I'd already forgot about that question. You hadn't done any studies on whether or not cops aren't dying at nearly the same rate?
No, I haven't.
Okay. And would that enter into your decision in this case?
No.
If you're asked as a juror, called as a juror, and you're deciding this case, would you keep that outside the courtroom?
Sure.
Okay. Your honest answer to 10, not that all the rest of them were honest too, but this one, time away from work and family, but this is only my selfish reasons.
What was the question on number 10?
Why do you feel that way about, here, do you want to serve as a juror in this case? Not sure. And do you want to serve as a juror, or would you rather go home?
Well, I think it would be. It's kind of, there are some difficulties that would have to be overcome. Yes.
Okay, and what are those? Would you be able to overcome them?
Yes, I would be able to. I was just being honest that spending time away from my family would be difficult.
Okay. With respect to your employment, do you work days?
I do.
Okay, so it wouldn't be much different than that, unless you.
Well, yes, I have a deal worked out with my wife that
Okay.
the child care issue would be
Okay.
have to be dealt
You
with.
have all young children.
Yes.
You'll get out of that for a few days. Is that fair?
You'd have to ask my wife that question.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Great. We'll pass the juror. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Your Honor. Juror 21. I apologize for calling you by number. It's just the way we're doing it in this case, but I know it's rather impersonal. Thank you for your answers. I kind of come third in line, so a lot of my questions have been asked, and I'll try not to be repetitive, but just a couple things to follow up on. Your impression of the victim in this case, you don't condone fleeing from a police officer. That's a perfectly understandable answer. And I just want to ask you, if you were to serve as a juror, would you look at that aspect of the case as just another part of all the evidence put forward in the case? Does that make sense to you?
I think so.
I mean, whether we condone it generally
Yes, I understand.
may not be relevant to how it plays out in a case in a courtroom. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I'm not telling you, how to think about it one way or the other. It's just, I just wanted to ask that, you'd be able to view the evidence in the courtroom about the whole case fairly and openly. Is that something you can do?
I think I can.
Yeah, and did I hear you right? The person that broke into your neighbor's house just had a seat on the couch and was apprehended there?
Yeah, there was some, I believe, alcohol, drugs, and some possible mental illness involved in that, yes.
Okay. So that situation was handled pretty swiftly.
Yeah, yes it was.
There was the chart of questions about agree and disagree. Do you recall that?
Not all of them, but yes.
Yeah. It was a long time ago you filled this out, I assume, right?
I believe it was back in August. So.
Yeah. There's one question about police in my community make me feel safe, and you agreed with that. I think we all want the police to make us feel safe in our community, right?
All right, everyone, thank you for joining in. Judge Regina Chu is back in the courtroom now. We are going to transition for the moment from yesterday's questioning of juror number 21 back into the 18th floor live as they begin to question what we believe will be juror number 40. Here's Judge Chu.
Hello, juror number 40. Please remove your mask. Thank you. Okay, a couple of follow-up questions on your answers to the questionnaire. You stated that you had a somewhat negative general impression of defendant Kimberly Potter, that you had a somewhat negative general impression of Daunte Wright, and you also express some opinions about what defendant Potter should or should not have done. That's perfectly fine that you have opinions or general feelings about the case and about the parties involved. But my question is whether or not you can concentrate only on what the evidence is in this case, the testimony of the witnesses and any exhibits admitted into evidence, and base your decision solely on the evidence that's presented in the case and not rely on anything you heard about or thought about before. Can you do that?
Yes.
Okay. I know this. You filled out this questionnaire quite a long time ago, but there was a question on the question is this. The defendant, Kimberly Potter, was an officer for the Brooklyn Center Police Department. Is there anything about her employment with the Brooklyn Center Police Department that would prevent you from rendering a fair and impartial verdict in the case? And your answer was previous incidents with BCPD or other police department. Can you elaborate on that answer?
Just if there were any other incidents with Ms. Potter.
Okay, so if there had been,
Yep.
then that might affect your ability to be fair.
Yep.
Okay.
But I don't know of any.
All right, thank you. Okay, in response to the question on law enforcement, you stated that you're a high school police explorer.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Tell me what you do for that.
Well, that was a long time ago.
When was it?
In the 90s.
Okay.
At the time, it was just meetings that we had with the police officers. We run city council packets to the council members at the time, and then we practice in shooting.
Oh, you practice shooting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you acted as a liaison with the police department
Yep.
in the high school?
Some people were way more involved than I was. I only did it for about 6 months.
Okay. What exactly was your responsibility as a high school police explorer?
Very, very limited. I didn't volunteer for any events. I basically just went to weekly meetings, I believe.
Okay, and what were the weekly meetings about?
I don't know that I could even remember.
Okay,
Sorry.
it was quite a long time ago. All right. You stated that you were accused of a crime. Were you satisfied with the result? Do you think you were treated fairly by the justice system?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any complaints about how the police reacted to that or treated you?
No, I got what I deserved.
Okay. There was a question, do you believe the jury system in the country is a fair system? Why or why not? And one of your comments was, I feel bad for jurors. Can you kind of tell me what you meant by that?
I mean, just my own personal experience. It's not an area that I'm, I've never been a juror before, and looking at it, you have to understand and separate what's going on around you, and it's not an easy position to be in.
Okay, because it's a big decision.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And you've never served on a jury before?
No.
Okay, here's what I can tell you. I talked to jurors after they reach their verdicts, and they always tell me that even though they were reluctant to serve, they were really glad that they had the opportunity because they learned a lot, and all of them have told me that they've stepped away from jury duty with a renewed respect for a system of justice. So I'm probably not convincing you to look forward to it, but I'm just telling you as a fact, that's what they're telling me. So I know it's something different that a lot of people haven't done before, but are you willing to serve in this case if you're chosen to do so by the parties here?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. There's a question here. The jury must decide the case solely on the evidence produced in court and the law that the judge instructs, and not because of bias, passion, prejudice, or sympathy. Would you be able to follow this principle of law? And you said, yes, I would try. Can you give me a more definitive answer than that?
You know, I think when I was filling out the questionnaire, I was probably just going through it. It's a lot of information all at once, and so my answer would be yes, I would do what I'm instructed to do.
Okay, thank you. The questionnaire gave you dates that you would be required to serve if selected, and your response was family gatherings and impacts to my children during the holidays. And, that's understandable that that would be a concern that you would have. But would that concern be so overwhelming for you that you wouldn't be able to listen to what was going on in court here?
No, just an inconvenience more than anything.
Yeah. Okay. I know jury duty is inconvenient, and I know around the holidays it's probably a little more of a hardship than usual, but thank you for that. And you also recognize that being sequestered, if you were chosen as a juror, would put extra pressure on your wife and her job expectations to take care of the kids. It'll be harder for her.
Yep.
I bet she can handle it, though, right?
She can.
Okay. It's good of you to think of her, though. Okay. In response to the question, do you want to serve as a juror in this case, you marked no, not sure. Do you still feel that way?
I'm happy to serve on the juror. I'm probably more concerned about post-decision and what information about my person will be revealed, and any impacts that may have. But that's probably my only hesitation.
Okay. Is there anything about those concerns that makes you feel you can't be fair and impartial?
No.
Okay. So you can base your decision on the evidence and not because of any concerns about your personal safety or the aftermath of any decision?
Yes.
Thank you. Counsel?
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Paul Lang. I'm with Earl Gray. Amanda Montgomery, we represent Officer Potter. I have some questions for you, too. Touching on that last question that Judge Chu gave you, I mean, is it your concern that if you find that the evidence is not proven and you acquit Officer Potter, are you concerned about your safety or having people who disagree with the verdict harm you? Are you concerned about that?
I think it's regardless of which direction it goes.
Well, why don't you? I guess I don't want to lead you into it. Tell me more about what your concerns are, so I can imagine what they might be. But why don't you help me with it?
Yeah, I mean, I think my biggest concern is no matter which direction this takes, there's going to be a large portion of people that aren't going to be happy. And I don't know what information about me individually will be made public record. And based on what you can find on the internet, it's not that hard to find somebody.
Could you talk a little louder?
Sure. It's just not that hard to find information out about people. So the concern I would have there is more of, personal safety of my family.
And under what circumstances would you have a greater concern for the safety of your family?
I'm going to check, Your Honor. You brought the form question.
And do you want to rephrase that?
Well, what are your concerns about the safety of your family in light of your verdict?
Probably more things that could happen to my house, things that could happen to my kids. I don't know if they're rational or not. They're concerns that, it's not that hard to find information, and I don't know what's going to be shared publicly about jurors after the case is done.
And who would you be concerned about? What group or individuals would you be concerned about vis-a-vis your family and your house?
I'm going to check, Your Honor. Is asked and answered.
The objection is overruled.
Who would you? Let me rephrase it so you can. Who would you be concerned about? I mean, give us a little bit more about that. You're concerned about your safety, your house, your kids, but what individuals or groups would you be concerned about?
Either a group on the extremes of both sides. Either people that are happy for the decision or people that aren't happy for the decision. I mean, I don't have anybody in mind, but I wouldn't want anybody targeting me.
Would one side or the other have a greater concern for you, or is it both sides?
Both sides.
Okay. Well, you're anonymous, of course, here.
Here, yeah.
But there are ways, the media and the internet is ubiquitous now, and our assurance to you is that you'll be anonymous, but there's always an effort after the trial to find out who the jurors were. And it's up to the court and their motions and so forth. But, would that be a concern for you that would prevent you from serving on the jury? I mean, is it a legitimate, legitimate's not the right word, is it a sincere concern that you have that would be make it difficult for you to be a juror in this case? That's
No.
the question.
I'm going to check, Your Honor. Just ask if you agree.
Okay, he already answered it.
Well, let me back up. Tell us what you do for a living. I saw the one line here, but I couldn't quite tell what it was. If you'd explore that with me for a second.
Sure, I work in IT, information security. Been in that field for 20 plus years. Kind of do a random smattering of different consulting type work in that field.
Can you explain that a little bit for me? And don't tell us who you work for or anything like that. Just give me a sense of what you do every day.
Yeah, today I lead a group of people that is responsible for managing data for a large organization based out of the Twin Cities. So it's protecting that data, making sure that the data is available, searchable.
How'd you get into the field?
Luck. No, I got into it because so originally I went to school to be a cop. Decided that wasn't the right field for me. Then I went to go be a teacher. Realized that wasn't the field for me. So then I went to computers because they don't talk back. And ended up in that field. I've bounced around different industries and different levels of roles, and about six months ago took this job.
Was your previous employment similar skill set?
Yep.
When did you want to be a cop? Was that in relation to your Explorer activities back in high school?
It was. Yep.
Where was the Explorer unit, by the way? What
Bloomington.
police department?
Bloomington.
Did you go to school and get a degree in criminal justice then?
Nope, I changed my mind before I even got to college.
And what caused you to change your mind?
Afraid that I'd end up having to use my gun.
And that fear caused you just to change your mind totally.
Yes.
Well, you filled out a very lengthy questionnaire. And I had some. I'm not going to go over each of your questions, but or answers, I should say. But I do want to ask you some questions about it. So
Sure.
let me go through these with you. I'll try to click it along.
Okay.
But we all read these things, and then we have questions about it. So only a few questions, but I want to go through these. So you have a narrative on page 3 of all the details that you remember. And I wanted to ask you about a couple things. You say that that Mr. Wright was pulled over for a broken taillight, something minor. New policeman guy was not controlling situation. What do you mean by controlling?
It didn't look like the situation was being handled where controlling it. I mean, normally when I'm trying to think of the right way to say this, it didn't appear that the officer was in charge, and so it looked like he was stepping back into the car, and didn't to me look like it was being a situation that was controlled.
Okay. So that's what you meant by that.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And then you say in a moment later, Mrs. Potter tried to take control of the situation and moved the new policeman out of the way. Do you remember saying that?
I do.
Okay. You also mentioned that she yelled, "Taser, taser, taser."
I do.
And then the next sentence I want to ask you about, Ms. Potter, quotes, realized, end of quotes, she used the gun and backed up. You used the quotations around realized. Why did you do that? Just curious.
There was either something that I saw in the video or just the body language that made a pause.
The next page, you talk about somewhat negative in your impression of Officer Potter.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a somewhat negative impression of her today as you sit here?
I have no, it hasn't changed. I mean, I don't know any more than I knew when I filled out the questionnaire.
Well, the court asked you whether you would presume her innocent, give her a
Oh.
clean slate. I mean, the question I have for you is, that, given the fact that she's presumed innocent, does that somewhat negative impression get canceled out for this trial? Or is that something that would stay with you?
It would have to be eliminated. I mean, I would start with an impartial.
You're willing to eliminate it?
Yep.
Okay. You also talk about in this somewhat negative paragraph that she should have had, quotes, enough, quotes, muscle memory if what side her taser is on, and feel of that taser. What do you mean by muscle memory, and why did you say this? And give us your description of muscle memory for us.
It's kind of like knowing which foot uses the gas and which uses the brake. And if I understand right, she's been an officer in the force for a long time. And tasers they're not a new tool. So I would assume that they would know which side of their body they're talking about.
Well, you realize for this case you can't make any assumptions. You just have to listen to the evidence.
Yep, I understand that.
And one of the questions will be why this happened. And that's for you to decide. You understand that?
I understand.
And so your understanding of muscle memory has to be from the testimony if it comes in that way. Do you understand? You're good to go with that?
Yep.
Okay. And you also say for Mr. Wright you're somewhat negative because he made a bad decision. And what do you mean by making a bad decision?
Again, just based on the video that I saw, tried to get back in his car.
And you also said he was a familiar name to police.
That's what I remember hearing.
Okay. But again, we're going to start over for the trial, of course.
Yep.
Okay. Then down on 6, I'm flipping along here. The question is, have you ever talked about Daunte Wright with your family and friends? You say yes, only to close family. And it's about question number 2, which is the muscle memory question. Criticized of both sides, but sad how black people are treated, remains your answer.
Yes.
So you're willing to be critical of both sides.
Yes.
Well, then Judge Chu asked you about question 10. You say, I would have a hard time if the law was interpreted in a way I didn't agree with, which is, you realize that the judge, of course, is the law, but I mean, tell me again what you meant by that.
Sometimes the law is not common sense to me as an individual.
Can you give me an example?
If I'm driving 36 and the speed limit's 35 and I get a ticket for going 36.
Has that happened to you?
Not that one, no. I've gotten a ticket for loud motorcycle pipes, and it's a subjective statement. And so there are scenarios where, you know, I need more clarity on how to interpret common sense into the law.
It sounds like you've had some bad experiences with the police, or negative experiences, or experiences that you didn't enjoy anyway. Can you amplify that for me if I'm right?
I wouldn't say negative experiences, but it's never enjoyable getting pulled over.
How often does that happen to you?
A couple times in the last 10 years.
Motorcycle?
Yeah, actually.
Both for loud pipes?
No, one was for not having a helmet on in another state.
Then there was a part of the questionnaire on page 7, and I realize it's been a while since you answered this, so let me lead you through it and ask you a couple of questions about it. You say, there's one question, the police in my community make me feel safe, and you strongly agree?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And then, but on the other hand, because law enforcement officers have such dangerous jobs, it's not right to second guess decisions they make while on duty, and you strongly disagree. Do you remember that one?
I don't remember that one, no.
Would you stay with your answer? Let me read it to you again because it's kind of confusing the way this is worded. The statement was, because law enforcement officials have such dangerous jobs, it is not right to second guess decisions they make while on duty. And you strongly disagree.
So this is where I need a little help in understanding what the context of the question is. I don't believe that anybody is allowed to, I mean, I believe everybody should have their information reviewed. If that makes sense.
And how about this one? Police in this country treat white people and black people equally, and you strongly disagree.
Correct.
Okay, here's the question I have for you. Officer Potter is white. Mr. Wright, as you know, is black. Mm-hmm. Is that going to be a factor for you in deciding whether her guilt or non-guilt is proven?
No.
Okay. That's something that's not an issue for you in this case?
No.
You're talking about general societal issues on this one?
Correct.
And you still have a pistol or a shotgun?
I have a shotgun.
You a hunter?
I haven't used it in probably 20 years.
You got it at home though still?
Yep.
And moving along here, and I almost got through this, but on question 18, page 9, you have a somewhat favorable impression of Black Lives Matter. You said important for awareness, but I don't see change from it. You going to stay with that answer?
Yes.
You want to explain that to me a little bit?
I think anything in today's world takes generations to change. And so I do think it's an important awareness. I just haven't seen any tangible outcome from it yet.
The next question was how favorable, unfavorable with Blue Lives Matter are you, and you're somewhat favorable.
Yeah, I think, again, the other side of the coin is they have a risky job. It's not that, trying not to take the extremes, I guess is what I'm getting at.
And that's what you'll do here too.
Correct. Okay.
You know, I don't want to dwell on this, but you indicated you have some minor crimes in your past. Are these involving yourself?
Yes.
Are they misdemeanor type offenses, or well, how old are they? How long ago was it? And that may answer my question.
I got arrested for a DWI, and
We'll skip that. Any other ones?
nope.
And getting towards the end, do you believe our criminal justice system works? And you say it's not a system for reform, rather than punishment. It can be a cycle that is hard to get out of. Is that similar to your? Is that a sentiment that you kind of expressed about 2 minutes ago to me?
Yeah, society.
You're kind of saying the same thing.
Yep.
And then at page 13, you say, I need a better answer in reasonable doubt that I can understand and agree with. Of course, the judge will give you the definition. You agree to follow that. Of
Yes.
course. No problems there.
No.
Judge Chu touched on your family obligations, and you're still good to go.
Yes.
You can, anything I should have asked you that I didn't ask you?
I don't think so.
Can you give, I mean, the bottom line is, for us, is that can you give Officer Potter a fair shake here?
Yes.
Face her at the end of the day and say, I was fair to you.
Yes.
May I consult for a second? Well, thanks a lot for talking to me. We pass the juror.
The state may proceed.
Your Honor, state we passed the juror.
Pardon?
We passed the juror.
Okay. All right. You are going to be on our jury, okay? So, as I stated, we start on December 8th. We might start earlier. We don't know at this point. But you'll be getting a call from the jury office later on when we have a definite date. And they'll tell you when to report, where to report, and the time.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
So thank you very much. Have a great rest of the day.
You too.
Okay, counsel, let's talk a little bit about the afternoon jurors. There's been people, there have been jurors that have requested postponement. Has 41, is he or she still on?
41 is postponed.
Okay, 41 is out. 43 is out. Is 44 still on?
44 is postponed.
Okay. So we'll start with 46, 47, 48.
47. 47 is postponed as well.
Oh, okay, thank you. You're getting more up-to-date information than we are. Okay, so we'll start with 45, 48.
No, 46.
46, 48,
51. 51, 52, 55, and then 57.
Okay. All right, that's the afternoon. Okay, council, have a great lunch, and we'll reconvene at 1:30.
All right, everyone, welcome back. My name is Tim Blotz with Fox 9 News, and you've been watching the morning coverage so far of the jury selection in the trial of Kimberly Potter for the shooting death of Daunte Wright in that traffic stop from last April. Breaking news here is as you've just been watching, that we just impaneled the 10th juror in this case. So the judge only needs 2 more jurors to sit on this panel and 2 alternates. And they've been going at pretty good speed the last couple of days, although this morning all of the 3 jurors, potential jurors that were questioned, were dismissed. This one now sitting on the panel, so this would be the 10th juror, as we just mentioned. And what we can tell you about this juror is that he is a juror number 40. He was a man and was in high school, was in Police Explorers, which many of you are familiar with, is an organization and an activity to introduce young people, especially in high school, to law enforcement as a potential career. And he ultimately decided that wasn't for him because he did not want to use a gun. And then he told Judge Chu that eventually he wanted to become a teacher, and then settled on information technology because computers don't talk back to him. So he is willing to start with a clean slate on this particular trial, that he has seen some of the video in the past and formed some opinions about it, but he's willing to set those aside to look at the evidence that's presented by the attorneys in this trial and make his own mind based upon the law. So that's what we have. If we can go to our graphic now to show at least the jurors that have been selected so far. On Tuesday, we selected 4 jurors. We selected a man who is in his 50s. Also, juror number 6, who is a white woman in her 60s. Juror number 10, who is a white male in his 20s. Juror number 11, who is an Asian woman in her 40s. And then on Wednesday, a lot got done here yesterday. 5 jurors selected here, and they really went through them yesterday. Juror number 17, a white woman in her 20s. Juror number 19, a black woman in her 30s. Juror number 21, a white man in his 40s. Juror number 22, a white man in his 60s. And juror number 26, a woman of Asian descent in her 20s. Now, what the attorneys are allowed here is when they're questioning, they're also allowed to strike a certain number of jurors. The defense has 5 of what are called preemptory strikes. And so far the defense team has used 2 of those strikes. The state, led by Matthew Frank for the Attorney General's office, has used up all 3 of his strikes in this case yesterday. So the defense has 3 more that they can potentially use on the remaining jurors that they will question this afternoon. Okay, so let's go back now and review the questioning of juror number 40, who is just impaneled on this. And we begin with Judge Regina Chu questioning the candidate.
You stated that you had a somewhat negative general impression of defendant Kimberly Potter, that you had a somewhat negative general impression of Daunte Wright, and you also expressed some opinions about what defendant Potter should or should not have done. That's perfectly fine that you have opinions or, general feelings about the case and about the parties involved. Mm-hmm. But my question is whether or not you can concentrate only on what the evidence is in this case, the testimony of the witnesses and any exhibits admitted into evidence, and base your decision solely on the evidence that's presented in the case and not rely on anything you heard about or thought about before. Can you do that?
Yes.
Okay. I know this. You filled out this questionnaire quite a long time ago, but there was a question on. The question is this: the defendant Kimberly Potter was an officer for the Brooklyn Center Police Department. Is there anything about her employment with the Brooklyn Center Police Department that would prevent you from rendering a fair and impartial verdict in the case? And your answer was previous incidents with BCPD or other police department. Can you elaborate on that answer?
Just if there were any other incidents with Ms. Potter.
Okay. So if there had been,
Yep.
then that might affect your ability to be fair.
Yep.
Okay.
But I don't know of any.
All right. Thank you. Okay. In response to the question on law enforcement, you stated that you're a high school police explorer.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Tell me what you do for that.
Well, that was a long time ago.
When was it?
The 90s.
Okay.
At the time, it was just meetings that we had with the police officers. We run city council packets to the council members at the time, and then we practice in shooting.
Oh, you practice shooting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you acted as a liaison with the police department
Yep.
in the high school?
Some people were way more involved than I was. I only did it for about 6 months.
Okay. What exactly was your responsibility as a high school police explorer?
Very, very limited. I didn't volunteer for any events. I basically just went to weekly meetings, I believe.
Okay, and what were the weekly meetings about?
I don't know that I could even remember.
Okay,
Sorry.
it was quite a long time ago. All right. You stated that you were accused of a crime. Were you satisfied with the result? Do you think you were treated fairly by the justice system?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any complaints about how the police reacted to that or treated you?
No, I got what I deserved.
Okay. There was a question, do you believe the jury system in the country is a fair system? Why or why not? And one of your comments was, I feel bad for jurors. Can you kind of tell me what you meant by that?
I mean, just my own personal experience. It's not an area that I'm, I've never been a juror before, and looking at it, you have to understand and separate what's going on around you, and it's not an easy position to be in.
Okay, because it's a big decision.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And you've never served on a jury before.
No.
Okay, here's what I can tell you. I talked to jurors after they reach their verdicts, and they always tell me that even though they were reluctant to serve, they were really glad that they had the opportunity because they learned a lot, and all of them have told me that they've stepped away from jury duty with a renewed respect for our system of justice. So I'm probably not convincing you to look forward to it, but I'm just telling you as a fact, that's what they're telling me. So I know it's something different that a lot of people haven't done before, but are you willing to serve in this case if you're chosen to do